Form Happy by Helena Fox and York Normandy veterans. Part 3, The Last Push.
Do you read me? Over. Report, winter 1944. Location, Holland, River Mars, 2300 hours. C Company, East Yorkshire Regiment, dug in. Private Albert Barrett, Bert, on night patrol. Over.
I think I'm having an easy war in some ways. I come back to the regiment after 4 months being wounded. Eventually, we go back into Holland around Christmas time, and I catch up with the battalion, but a different company this time, the C Company. The winter is coming. You're not fighting all the time. You sometimes go in the front line for 2 weeks maybe. There's this one time we're in this place. If you can imagine a gully, a countryside gully, and the sides are going up a bit with the earth, and they've dug not down, but into the side of the gully. They've dug into that. So you get on your hands and knees and you crawl and you go in and it's a bit damp. And your boots are muddy. Oh dear. And you have to turn your back. Follow? Deep enough to stretch out, enough to put my knees up. The earth is over you. No light. I don't even have a torch. It's like a mole hole. That's it. I imagine I'm a mole. I feel like a mole. It's the getting in and turning. It's horrible. It's the worst. It's the worst place. If ever I wanted to give up, it's in this hole. It's night time and we're on the River Mars, and the Germans are on the other side. We're on our way back from nightly patrol. The sergeant has asked for volunteers. Who wants to go on patrol? And I think I'd better volunteer. And we've been wandering around for 2-3 hours. Long time. And while you're patrolling, you have a grenade in your hand and you pull the pin out. So you're holding a grenade for 2 or 3 hours, but you don't let it go. Because if you let go, it'll take you out. So you make sure you're holding that tight. I mean, the idea is, if you get shot at, you'd throw it straight away. I've never had to do that so far. And tonight's all quiet. And we're on our way back. We're making our way back through the quiet. When we get back, we can put the pin back in. And suddenly, we're being fired on. We're being shot at, but we're too green to know what to do. And we're being fired on, and we realise from the direction we're being shot at by our own men. We're being fired on by the English. It's our... We start shouting, "Where's C Company? Where are you?" And they're shouting, "We're D Company." So I'm shouting, "Well, don't shoot us." We're having to negotiate with them to get back to our position. I mean, the poor British squaddy doesn't know where the other companies are. The sergeant might, the officers might, but we don't. Don't shoot us!
Report, winter 1944. 2000 hours. Location, Europe. All 5 soldiers are on the move as the Allies continue their advance. Repeat, Bert, Mary, Smudger, Cookie and Hank all on the move. The end approaches. Over.
After months, in hospital, in a plaster cast from here to here, they put me on another plane, sending me back over to join up with the HLI, Highland Light Infantry. I ask why I aren't going back to my own regiment. It appears they took a base in my regiment at Nijmegen. They all split up. The other regiments are short of men, so they're taking men from different regiments, such as ours, to make up numbers. And I'm to join up with the HLI in Belgium.
After being declared fit again, I'm given 10 days leave. But after about 7 days, I'm ordered to report to Pirbright immediately. A couple of days later, we're at sea again in a landing craft, sailing for Dieppe, and I rejoin number 2 squadron. And everyone's surprised to see me, including Les Hansen, saying, "Hello, I thought you were dead." We're billeted in a German village, Hillensberg, and all the civilians are being moved out so we can occupy their houses. It's December now. The squadrons in the battalion have to take turns at holding the front line. The area is like flat moorland, but covered in a thin layer of snow. We change places with those dug out nearer the enemy. The Germans here occasionally send shells over which hiss by, scattering leaflets all over the place. The message on the leaflets conveys the fact that, to enjoy Christmas, all we have to do is walk forward and give ourselves up. It was my 21st birthday the other week, and tomorrow is Christmas Day.
Christmas greeting. Somebody cares a lot for you. Wherever you are, whatever you do. Cares if you're troubled or ill or sad. Cares if you're happy, well and glad. Somebody loves your voice, your smile. The touch of your hand, what makes life worthwhile. And someday perhaps, as the years roll on, you'll look behind o'er the road we've gone. Then you'll discover, by and by, there's somebody caring so much was I. To Mum and Dad, with lots of love from your son, George.
Sleep in heavenly peace.
I don't write home much. Write odd letters or two, but writing doesn't come easy to me. So I just write a few lines to Mother saying that I'm still alive, Mother. I don't know where I am. But I'm not in England.
I spend Christmas on the River Mars, and I'm one of the lucky ones. I get 10 letters or packages from home. Amazing. Wonderful. Ah, yes.
We're in Near Elysium for about 6 weeks, suffering the noise and the silence of many a buzz bomb. You got noise and silence. Noise, silence.
By March, we're on the banks of the Rhine, and we join up with the Canadians who are already here, dug in.
Silence. Then noise. Silence. Then noise.
Suddenly, we hear this noise, screaming noise. This Messerschmitt is coming down, Spitfire chases him. What a noise. They have like a siren on the tail, they have like a siren, and when the air is rushing through it, it makes this screaming noise. You know, whoa! Never heard anything like it. We set out to cross the Rhine. We have these flat-bottom boats, and ours has an engine on the back. We have a motor on the back, engine on the back. And there's a bit of noise as we're setting off from the gun's artillery. The noise of the engine and the barrage over the other side. The guns are lined up along the banks on the Rhine. 5.5 they are. Big guns up to 60 to about 100 along the Rhine. Boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. More noise. Smoke. There's another explosion. Big explosion. Fireworks and all the rest of it. And we've got to keep going. Got to get across the Rhine.
Silence. Then noise. Silence.
Night comes. It's now October 20th, and we're just beginning to enter Germany. And we get a patrol in there during daylight and keep squat and observe and wait for nightfall. I'm dug in near the bridge, and there's a wood opposite us, and there's two of us. I have another chap with me, another soldier. We know there's some armour in there. I mean, shells have a terrific range, up to 20 miles some of the bigger guns. You're never really safe anywhere. I'm getting out of the slit trench when suddenly they're firing, and a shell bursts very close to me, and the blast takes me off my feet, and I'm flying through the air with the greatest of ease, blowing me into a previous RAF bomb crater. So the German tanks can no longer see me. And the other poor chap, I'm so lucky, because I'm nearer to it. The shell bursts very close to me, but the chap 10 yards from me is killed. When a shell bursts, it kills two ways. One is the blast, and blast will disarrange your insides but not leave a mark on you. But you're dead. Or the shrapnel, when it bursts, comes up and over and hits somebody further away. He's dead. And the shrapnel comes through here into my left thigh and lower abdomen. The biggest bit lodges in my hip, and looking down, all the front of my battle dress is absolutely soaked in blood. And I'm thinking I must be disemboweled. There's so much blood. And next thing, I'm bumping down this road on a jeep with two outriggers that carry 4 stretchers on them. And I pass battalion headquarters perhaps half a mile down the road, and a voice comes across. "You lucky so-and-so, smudger." They know. I'm getting out of it.
It's April 1st. Not only Easter Sunday, but April Fool's Day, and we're the leading battalion. Our squadron is the leading squadron, and we are the leading troop, and our tank is the leading tank. The first tank. Our objective is to capture a bridge over a large canal at Enskede and stop the Germans in their tracks. And we're approaching the bridge. But there's a huge bomb on each corner of it. Our tank commander's reporting the bombs to the squadron HQ on the radio, but we're still being ordered to cross the bridge to form a bridgehead. And we're crossing the bridge at full speed, and I'm praying the bombs won't be detonated before we get across. All 3 tanks get across, before there's a terrible woof of an explosion. The bridge has been blown, and we're isolated from our squadron. I'm being ordered to fire my Browning 303 at everything I can see. All windows in the flats down the road, anything that moves. Suddenly, a German army bus is coming towards us. I fire at the bus, and it turns sharp right. Soldiers are jumping off the bus as it turns, and I'm obliged to fire at them as they're running for cover. I spot a German with a bazooka in the field to our right, but I can't bring my machine gun to bear on him, and I'm reporting to Lieutenant Jardine, but before he can turn the turret, the bazooka fires at us, and our right-hand track breaks, and the tank's hurtling off the road onto the embankment of the bridge. We're evacuating the tank as quick as we can, and we're hurrying down, shielded by the embankment, down to the water. We have to get back to our regiment, but that means we're going to have to swim across a river, because the bridge has been blown. But I can't swim, can I? And further down the canal and beyond the bridge, we can see Germans crossing to our side in a small boat. The others are swimming across. But I can't swim. Lieutenant Jardine is trying to persuade me to go as far as I can with his help. I'm wading in the water. And then suddenly, thank God, I can feel the balustrade of the bridge below the surface. It's rather a funny experience because under the water, with my feet, I can feel the handrail of the bridge has been blown up. And it's bringing me to safety. We're clambering onto the other shore, without our boots and jackets, absolutely wet through and freezing, and we're running in single file along the bottom of the embankment. And suddenly, there's Mr. Boscawen's tank as we're coming to the road. The tank is ablaze. I shall never forget the horrific sight of Les Hansen's corpse burning on the back of that tank. Strangely, he's lying on his back in a sitting position. Tug Wilson and Bradbury are also dead. The officer, Mr. Boscawen, and Bland the driver are severely burned. We have run across a minefield from the bridge and are being fired on all the way. None of us are hit. We keep going, and we're trying to throw ourselves on the back of Mr. Sedgwick's tank, and he's taking us to a place of safety, a Dutch farmhouse, and the Sergeant Major's pouring us drinks and giving us dry clothes, and the next thing, we're moving back to Enschede to join the squadron. And we get there, and suddenly they're saying that the squadron has gone into a German village called Berg. Unknown to them, German paratroopers are hiding in the upstairs rooms of the village, and as our tanks have filled the main street, they've fired down on them. Fire down on them. All dead. Every single last one. Dead. Everything's spinning, and my knees are buckling, and I'm sitting on a petrol jerry can in a semi-conscious state. All the rest of our squadron. Dead. Why do we have to kill each other? All these poor people killed. It's daft. The Sergeant Major's taking me to the company orders, and the squadron commander's suggesting that being knocked out of 2 tanks is enough for anyone. And he's asking me if I'd be willing to be a batman. As far as I am concerned, anything is better than going back into one of those galvanised mess tins. But I can't. I can't, sir. I can't abandon my comrades.
We fight our way up towards Bremen. We see some towns absolutely flattened, you know, all these artillery just flatten houses and different buildings and all that. And we're just outside Bremen. We're nearly there. We get into these positions, trenches what are already, Germans already dug. We get into them, hide in them. And we're hiding in them. And there's a road on our right-hand side. And we spot 2 Germans coming towards us, coming towards the trench. So we wait for them, coming round this edge, and we're up and shouting at them, "Put down your weapons!" One of them's running like the blazes downfield, and there must be a dozen of us firing at him, and none of us hit him. The other chap, he's putting his hands up like. Next day, silence. All quiet, all quiet. Whether the one who escaped told about us, we'd be up this end, I don't know, but suddenly we're getting this barrage of artillery on us. firing on us. Bang, 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 firing on us. Bang, 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 firing, on and on and on, firing rockets. The Nebelwerfers scream as they're coming through, putting the fear of God in us. Smoke, noise, explosions like fireworks. Noise, noise, noise going off all around me everywhere, and the explosions are making me... Make me... A bit doolally, you know. My mum receives a letter. Infantry Record Office, 2nd of May, 1945. Infantry Records, Perth. Dear Madam, number 1469-3549, Private Cooke, Kenneth Basil. Highland Light Infantry have to inform you that Private, above named soldier, was reported missing, kidnapped, prisoner of war, in Western Europe, April 1945. Silence.
Report, May 8th, 1945. Sunrise. The mist is lifting. 5 young soldiers, from different regiments, standing at ease. Over and out.
I've had 5 months before I get wounded. And it's the happiest day of my life. Because it gets me out from the constant shelling. Because after several months you begin to get... It's not shell shock. But we used to say, we're bomb happy. And I just feel that starting in myself. Battle fatigue is accepted in the American army. A very high proportion of their fighting men are invalided away from the front with battle fatigue. But it isn't accepted in the British. There are people who, after a few months, everybody has a different rate of... Some can stand more than others. It isn't the toughest chap that can stand it, and it's not the bravery, it's the having to do it. No choice. And when I'm bumping past headquarters on that stretcher, it's the happiest day of my life.
The end of hostilities isn't far away. Though the war is over for the country, the agreed date is May 8th. We don't get to come home. We don't see VE Day.
The end of the war in Europe doesn't mean the end of the war for us. And once I'm out of hospital, we're sent out on the troop ship the Strathmore to Palestine.
I'm 2 years in Germany after the war. The battalion is to be sent to Palestine, but the officer says, you're going to Rhine Army headquarters.
It's 5 years before they let me come home again. After I get out, I try looking for Bill and Stuart again. That's when I learn. Stuart got shot 2 days before the end of the war. I'll never find Bill.
It's not till February 1947 I'm demobbed, given my demob suit, shirt and overcoat. I'm 23. Before I leave Caterham, Captain Jessel writes in my discharge papers, military conduct, exemplary. This is the most admirable man, who is honest, intelligent, and thoroughly reliable. He can be relied on to fill any position of trust. He will go a long way in civilian life. The shrapnel splinters are still in my arm.
I turn up in a transit hospital with shell shock, what they later call post-traumatic stress disorder. The discharge doctor takes one look at the scars all over my back and legs from my previous injury, and he tells me, "You should never have been sent back, son." He says, "You should never have been sent back out there."
After 5 long years conscripted, I arrive back in York, carrying my D-Mob suit. And I walk to the station, instead of getting an army truck. And I call in at the nearest church. And I kneel at the altar. And I take an oath that I will never handle another weapon again, and not even a toy one, or at a shooting gallery, and that if I'm ever recalled to the colours, I will literally refuse to be a combatant. I'll do anything, but I won't be a combatant, no matter what it costs. The reason being, if you're behind a machine gun day after day, you're responsible for killing and wounding literally hundreds of people. And as time goes by, it doesn't get any easier to think what you've done, what you were made to do. Violent death is different to somebody who dies in hospital in a nice clean sheet. Violent death, it's something indecent. The same as the thousands upon thousands where they don't know who the bodies are. They don't know where the bodies are, you know. When you know that your son, your daughter, your loved one is nowhere. Not just 1,000 killed, but 20, 30, 40,000 in unmarked graves. And terrible things that some of those lads went through. I mean, you can't get it over to people.
People say we're heroes when we come back. We're not. The lads over there, the ones who never came back, they're the heroes.
June 6th this year is probably the last that the veterans will visit France. They're in their 90s now, you see, the 5 that are still with us. But they were determined to go again this year. Well, this is the year they get presented with the Legion d'Honneur medal, the highest accolade a soldier can get in France. I remember one time we were over there in France for the commemorations. I think it was the 70th anniversary. And we visited this village which had been liberated by the British. And I'll never forget, there was an old gentleman. He was tending a grave. And then he saw us, saw the veterans with their medals on, and he came across to embrace us, shake hands. And he told us he was 17 when it happened that day. And his mother was killed by the shelling. The shelling before the attack killed his mother. He was 17. And he comes across to embrace us, shake hands and thank the veterans. He thanked my husband, for helping to liberate the village and their country, he said, just like that. And he was very nice, and it was very, very upsetting to listen to this. He was attending the actual grave at the time, and it was so sad. Well, when you think to come up to a soldier that you know was partly responsible for your mother and come and say thank you. He doesn't sleep well, my husband. He has these moments. I get very upset when I see him have these moments because I don't want him to remember. I know he'll never forget, but I don't want it to keep coming back to him. For that few minutes till I wake him up, he's at war. And I can tell by his actions, he shouts, calling out and things like that. He just doesn't like to... I don't know. I don't think he likes me having to listen sometimes. But naturally, I'm his wife, and I want to know what he's been through. And all these other men, all these veterans. It must have been an horrific thing for them, really. I mean, to get off that landing craft knowing what you were facing. I don't think I could ever have done it. I suppose, as he said, you have to do it. You're conscripted at 18 and you've no choice. You can't say, no, I'm not going to do it. You have no choice. And what haunts him most is those left behind. The ones who at 18, 19, 20 and even younger didn't survive. They were vibrant, happy-go-lucky people full of life. And when he goes over there to the cemeteries and he sees those names, he says, I know these names. I trained with them. I've drunk with them. Played football with them. Landed with them. And then they're gone and I'm still here. And I go and get 70 more years of life. Wonderful life. And I have to live with that, he says. I have to live with it. And he does. They all do. Every day.
Thank you for listening to this special commemorative production of Bomb Happy. At this point in previous tours of the stage show, the remaining veterans would join the actors on stage to say a few words. Today, we are honoured to have the real cookie, Mr. Ken Cooke, join us via telephone to read his favourite poem entitled The Veteran, written by an unnamed paratrooper who landed at Pegasus Bridge.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be able to talk to you in this way. I don't know, the first or second time I went into Pegasus Bridge Cafe. Now, in the Pegasus Bridge Cafe, the walls are absolutely covered with parachute regiment memorabilia. There was photographs, statements from different paratroopers, magazines, books. On one part of the wall, I happened to glance at the wall and I saw this poem. It was one of the paratroopers that landed at Pegasus Bridge who wrote the poem. It's called The Veteran. They ask us why we do it, why we still parade. Now we are getting older and just a little frayed. It's not for the sake of glory or the medals on our chest. It's simply we are comrades who stood the final test. On the 6th of June, that fateful day, a day we will never forget, many a lad laid down his life and paid the final debts. So when you see a veteran, give the man your hand, for those medals on his chest were won in a foreign land. And when God asks the question, "Who are you, my man?" I will proudly answer, "Sir, I am a veteran."
Bomb Happy was first performed as a rehearsed reading in 2016 and was attended by the real Merry, Smudger, Bert and Cookie, veterans George Meredith, Ken Smith, Bert Barrett and Ken Cooke. Sadly, Dennis Haydock, Hank, passed away a week before the rehearsed reading. In 2017, as the play went into rehearsals for its first tour, Merry also sadly passed away, leaving only veterans Cookie, Bert and Smudger to tour with the show. In 2019, having been recommissioned by York Civic Trust through the Armed Forces Covenant to commemorate the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the show ran for 5 nights at York Army Museum before journeying to Edinburgh Festival Fringe, where it was awarded the prestigious Summer Hall Lustrum Award. Veterans Cookie and Smudger were there to collect the award alongside the cast. Bert was sadly unable to travel by this time. He passed away 2 months later. And at the start of lockdown, we also sadly lost Smudger. The original stage playtext of Bomb Happy is published by Methuen & Co. and can be purchased from their website or online through Waterstone's book retailers. All royalties go to York Normandy veterans. If you'd like to discover more about the York Normandy veterans' wartime and peacetime experiences, their personal archive can be found at York Explore Library. In Bomb Happy by Helena Fox and York Normandy veterans, Bert was portrayed by Thomas Lillywhite, Hank by Jack Chamberlain, Cookie by Danny Mellor, Merry by Carl Wiley, Smudger by Joe Sample, Queenie by Beryl Nairn, and The Signaller by Joe Rivis. The voice coach for the audio production was Karina Jones. I Vow to Thee My Country was taken from a recording for the 2017 production of Bomb Happy, featuring 1812 Youth Theatre, led by Natasha Jones, with solo by Esme Schofield. The soundtrack was composed by Sam McAvoy. The sound designer was Ben Pugh, the presenter Cal Stockbridge, associate producer Jack Chamberlain, and the director was Helena Fox. This was an Everwitch Theatre audio production, made during lockdown from the safety of the creative team's own homes to commemorate the 75th anniversary of victory in Europe, and supported using public funding by the National Lottery through Arts Council England. It is dedicated to the memory of Ken Smith, Bert Barrett, George Meredith, and Dennis Haydock. Thank you for listening.